Good morning, as I imagine that's when this is gonna come out. A while back, I got a request to react to this song. I let it in and took everything by Loathe. Never listened to this band, never listened to this song before, so I'm gonna react to it. It's sort of the plan. I got this comment a very long time back, and so to the dude that requested this, I'm very sorry, I'm just now getting to it. But I also got another request to listen to a different song. I got that request more recently, and that reminded me of this first guy's request. So we're going to react to both songs today, and hope my mic doesn't break so I can't use half this video. We're going to start with the Loathe song, and we're just going to go into it. I'm going to use my knowledge of vocal distortion to try to give my best explanation for any quote-unquote cool sounds that I hear. Before we do, I do not own the rights to the song. This isn't my song. This is a song by the band called Loathe, at least this first one. I am not affiliated with this song in any way, and it's not like, I own the rights to this thing. Alright, before we get into what I imagine is the chorus, I just want to say, love the clean vocals. Very soft vocals up until we get to the end of that, what I imagine is like a pre-chorus at the end there, where he starts to sort of belt some sounds. Very almost like very doom metal or atmospheric metal is the sort of thing I'm getting from this. So I don't know how much distortion we're actually going to encounter, but let's see. As I said that we encounter vocal distortion. Definitely the most of what I heard there was fry scream. We're going to get into that in a second. I think I want to go back and listen to that again. Good pronunciation on the words with the screams. For a lot of people, it's very hard when you have that distortion to pronounce words properly, just because you have to almost enunciate differently, because you already are putting a layer of natural effects over your voice. So it creates this sort of wall between pronunciation and understanding, whereas if I talk like this, you can understand me relatively well, but if I would add distortion on there, it would be a lot harder for you to understand me. So we're gonna go back, listen to that one more time.
you're seeing this because I'm editing this video and I figured out that my microphone decided to break and start buzzing. But instead of re-recording the entire second half of this video, or realistically like because this video is like 20 minutes long and this is only about 4 minutes in, instead of re-recording all that, you're just gonna have to deal with the buzzing, because I really do not feel like re-recording all of it at all, because that would take a whole lot of time and that would be giving analyses that I already gave. So you're kind of just gonna have to deal with it, and I'm sorry for this, but you kind of are. So just be prepared to have an annoying buzzing sound. I need to figure out what's going on wrong with my microphone and why it keeps doing this.
To me, it sounds mainly like Fry. I could be very wrong about that. There's a lot of times where I'll hear false chord, and it's a very thin false chord scream. When I do false chord screams, it's a much thicker. So sometimes it's harder for me to understand that idea of a very thin false chord. But it sounds like what I'm hearing there is Fry scream. And even though it's a good opportunity to bring this up, a lot of people think about Fry scream being tied to high screams, and Fry screaming makes high screams really easy to do. That is true. But you can do low screams with Fry screams. You can actually get pretty nasty lows. If I try to do just a low Fry scream, it can get really low, surprisingly. It really depends on what pitch you're placing behind the distortion. Same thing with false chord. Everybody typically attributes lower sounds to false chord, but you can get higher sounds with false chord. It's just what pitch you're putting under the distortion to make the sound. Definitely Fry screams. Even with the way that he's leading into it, you hear that almost squeaky sound coming right before the distortion. Definitely Fry scream. Maybe in that cut and spread force feed the false eagle, it kind of sounds maybe a bit like false chord. It sounds like they're layering some effect on there, or just like heavy compression that makes it hard to differentiate exactly what's going on there. But it definitely is a very thin false chord. You can tell because it has more of a deeper sound to it, and the mouth shape with that more like a instead of like a rah rah with like typically the higher screams rah rah. With the low screams, with the cut and spread force feed the false eagle. We're going to go back to that. It almost sounds like I'm a Sugar song right now, just from the chanty guitars. But that raw cut and spread the false eagle, that very tall shape typically is attributed to false chord, just because it works good with the distortion. Whereas with Fry, you can do like a, but it sounds more like a mid scream than it would a low scream. So typically when you have a low scream that has the sound like this, it's typically a false chord. No really like vocal gymnastics here with regards to shaping. Definitely good skill with both false chord and Fry and being able to create both those sounds. It's a hard thing to be able to create both false chord and Fry screams without like favoring one so much that the other starts to suffer. So it's definitely a good skill that this vocalist has to be able to do that. Yeah, let's keep going. lot of interlude. Please tell me we're building for a breakdown. I'm gonna pause it because by the lyric sheet, that's the end of the lyrics, and it's just gonna keep building that atmospheric that's with slowly raising that reverb. Yep. All right. So, an interesting song, more like doom metal, atmospheric metal-esque. Not really my specific subgenre, but it's a good song. It's a good song, especially listening to the vocals. I'm gonna go back to the vocal distortion because that's what I specialize with. The clean vocals did sound very good. They sounded very relaxed. They sounded very relaxed. It kind of reminds me in some of the spots, like Creep by Radiohead, that almost just very, very low effort. Just creating that sound, not really placing much effort into it, where it has that it has a certain feel to it, which you have here, especially with the instrumentals. So definitely I'm going to go back and just this is the most replayed section, so I imagine this is the distortion. Definitely sounds like a very relaxed mouth shape. You can tell when you listen to screams when something is like being like versus when it sounds a lot different. You can hear it. It almost sounds here like that one of a kind, especially very relaxed. One of a kind, not much effort going on into shaping it. More so because they're focusing on OBS is lagging. That's great. They're not really focusing on trying to get like a very vocal gymnastic-y sound as would be present in subgenres like deathcore. They're more focusing on the lyrics and just on basic distortion. Overall, what I can say about it is it sounds like this person's screams are good. I can't tell through the layers of effects. Simply just because I'm used to hearing more clean. It's going to sound like a clean distortion where there's not really many effects placed on it. Additional vocals by Vincent Void. Down at the bottom there. It's down right at the bottom here, if you can't really read it well. I wonder if I could find any other Vincent Void stuff. That might be another video. But anyway, let's head over to the next song. Alright. So I was asked to check out this song. I've checked out one of the songs by the band. And I've already listened to this guy, Garrett McKeon. I've already listened to some of his vocals. He has a very classical style, in my opinion, of course, a more classical style of approaching deathcore. By the way, yes, this band is supposed to be a Christian deathcore band. So here we go. Let's go for it. We're going to start back from the beginning again. It's almost Corpse Grinder-esque. I appreciate that the vocal. This is gonna sound weird. I appreciate that the vocals aren't really mixed well because they pop out and it's easier to analyze them. Definitely a very compressed false chord. This kind of sounds like, first of all, it's more like a very loose jaw. Not really loose jaw, but like almost imagine try to bring the back of your jaw down. Which kind of forces your jaw forward a bit. Which gets you that kind of more classic scream sound that you really don't see much today anymore. Definitely, it is a very compressed false chord, which also is kind of a classic sound. Like today, a lot of people like hearing very wow. They like hearing each individual like part of the distortion in a very almost crunchy sound, versus something like this, which is a bit more of a cleaner distortion, was much more popular. If I know my history, I could be completely wrong about that. If I am wrong about that, please correct me. High fry screams right there. You have the low false chord paired with the high fry, a very common mix that you'll hear in a lot of songs because they're complementary to each other. A low false chord to a high fry, they're very complementary to each other. You can pick out his high fry screams very well. Again, that sound is not a sound that you really hear anymore. It's more like a like you have a sound kind of close to that in some Infant Annihilator, which is definitely really interesting. Definitely that because you can't really decipher those very well. Let me just preface this. This was released 10 years ago, so just keep that in mind. This was released 10 years ago, which is why it'll have certain sounds that are different from today, and why one of the comments I'm making is just vocals overall, an approach to extreme vocals has changed. It's because this was released 10 years ago. And let me just say that right now, just really flesh that out. The approach to extreme vocals and overall the sounds that majority people favor has changed a lot throughout the history of metal. Like, you have somebody like Corpse Grinder, who is really big in the scene. He wouldn't be as big today because you have people like Will Ramos that are making a lot of waves in vocal distortion. And he has a lot more of a decipherable vocal distortion and a lot more of like overall range with what he can do in his larynx. But you can decipher his words very well, and it's almost like he's talking, but just with distortion. Not really like this, where it's like you're trying to be brutal. A lot of people, you can hear it a lot better. What I'm realizing is that I have the thought in my mind, but I'm not able to decipher the thought correctly to put it out. I'll see if I can find a better way. Gotta roll. It feels like it sounds like he's pulling his tongue back more, whereas if you put your tongue closer to your top two front teeth, but when you bring it back more, that kind of sound. I'm not warmed up right now, but I'm also not pushing that sound. Much more like a slam metal type of sound, where that like very, very closed distortion, very thin distortion. You hear that with a lot of slam metal. Yeah. So those mids, I think, are false chord mids, but they could also be fry lows. They could be fry lows. I'm sticking with false chord mid. It's a very, like, nasal passageway sound, but not really, like, letting air out. It's more so about placing the resonance up there with those high screams. They're interesting. Again, it's more like a Dickie Allen type of high scream. From the Infinite Annihilator I've heard. I don't really listen to much Infinite Annihilator for obvious reasons. I'm a Presbyterian. Again, it reminds me of Corpse Grinder. Where you aren't really focusing on pronouncing the words, but you're more keeping that guttural together. It's also a very pulled back guttural. In one of the shorts I made recently, I talked about how you have 3 different types of gutturals. You have a pointed tongue, a flat tongue, and you have pulling your tongue really far back. This is kind of a mix between a flattened tongue and a pulling the tongue far back, where the tip of your tongue is going to be like closer to the front, but that flattened part is going to be in the middle of the roof of your mouth. Where, like, if I... Let me try that again. If I try to talk with the distortion, you really aren't going to hear anything. We're going to skip to where we encounter vocals next. Very good pairing of a high and a mid. More like a low. But when you pair a high and a mid low, when you pair those two perfectly, it sounds like it's the equivalent of a good slice of bacon. It's fatty, it's juicy, it's salty, it's savory, goes good with eggs, it's perfect. When you pair those two well together in a mixing, it sounds really good. You listen to like a lot of Lorna Shore. One of the things that they'll do with Will Ramos' vocals is they'll have a low and a high at the same time, which gets you that sound which you just love because you have those two complete opposites. But if they work in unison, amazing. Especially then when you slide into a mid from both of those, it's great. Maybe not Dickie Allen. Maybe Mitch Luker. Luker, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Maybe it's Mitch Luker. Maybe that's who I'm thinking of. I don't know. I need to listen to more classic deathcore to get like the terminology correct. But like that like older sound that you'd hear from bands like Suicide Silence and Infinite Annihilator. It is kind of heavily compressed though. Almost like they put a blanket over the mic and then had him scream. It's interesting. I understand like trying to do that with highs in some scenarios, but you want to let... It might just be the mic they recorded on. It might just be like the surroundings when they did it. You want to really let that high sound poke through really well, because a good piercing high can do a lot for a song. See, the thing you've got to realize is this is what I like to call something like this deceiving lows, because it sounds like it's just oh, but in reality it's oh. It's having that really pulled back guttural shape that I was talking about earlier with an oh. So it's not oh, it's oh. It's really a guttural, even though it sounds just like a plain low. It's deceiving. Okay. Not really much to comment on because a lot of the vocals were repeated. So a lot of the same concepts applied, especially with just because there was just really much high and low. This guy is this guy is a pretty good vocalist. I would say he needs a bit more work. It kind of sounds like he is over compressing. Which is something I used to do, so I know what that sound really sounds like. That oh, where you're going too much. So what could be that turns into when you get a much thinner sound, but it's kind of at the expense of your vocal health. Definitely an interesting song. All right, so we got both of those down. Thank you to thank you to the two people that suggested those. Help me. Thank you to the two people that suggested those. And go check out these two bands. The vocalists are pretty good. I Built the Cross, I don't think is putting out any more new music, which is kind of sad. I think that the project, that sort of mini project is done. I would love to, though, have another song with Garrett McGeehan on it, because I do think that his vocals bring that old school sound, which I think we need a bit more of, because it's more plain. We have a little too much vocal gymnastics going on overall, and I think that we need to get back to more simpler sounds. Let me know what other songs you'd like me to give analysis of, and let me know what things I missed, because I definitely missed stuff. And if you thought my analysis was good, tell me. If you thought it was poor, tell me. I'll try to improve. With that, thank you all for watching. May the Lord direct all thy paths. And here's a message from my brother.
You should subscribe to this gentleman on the internet.